Michigan has made quite a comeback in recent years. And I think it's only fair, as you approach the end of your second term, take a victory lap. Tell us about why Michigan is doing so well. How do you measure it?
Well, it's simple, and I like metrics. So if you step back and look at, we are the comeback state. We went through a terrible decade before. We went into it with large deficits. When I became governor, highest unemployment in the nation in many respects. And the comeback is large. We've created over 500,000 private sector jobs. We lead the nation in the creation of manufacturing jobs. We're number one. And the numbers are showing people are moving into Michigan now. We're a growing state, thriving place. Detroit is the comeback city in our country. It's very exciting to see, and we've got a lot of upside because there are new fields emerging in Michigan. We're the world's leader in mobility, this whole new field of autonomous and connected vehicles. So there's an exciting thing for a path to the future, and that's where I'm proud to be at this event on small business, because part of the comeback's really been small businesses growing in Michigan, and we've created a great environment for that. So I view the role of government as we create the environment for success, and you let free enterprise work, and it's working well.
Is this something that has to be done by the states, or can the federal government help? I mean, as we sit here in Washington at this small business event, is Washington doing a good job of creating the right atmosphere for the development, the creation and development of small business?
Well, I think more can be done. Again, in many respects, you get back to saying, what's the regulatory environment? What's the tax environment to encourage? And we did those basic things when I first became governor. I threw out the whole tax system, put in a new one that was simple, fair, and efficient. In terms of the regulatory environment, we've gotten rid of over 2,000 regulations, and there is a role for regulations. It's not just about getting rid of things, but doing it in a thoughtful fashion. So it's being responsive to say, how do you really encourage people to hire people to grow? And there are great programs. One program I would suggest to you is something we created called Pure Michigan Business Connect, which is a matchmaking process where we don't spend government dollars, but we're the convener. And we've done this where we bring small businesses with our big companies or big companies around the world, and we've generated an incremental $5 billion worth of sales for small and medium-sized businesses in our state by doing this matchmaking.
One of the things you mentioned that you did in Michigan is take care of the deficit. As we sit here in Washington right now, we're seeing the deficit, which we already thought was pretty big, go up. I mean, between the tax cuts and the budget agreements of last week, I mean, it's really ballooning. How difficult is that for the state of Michigan, number one? The possible pressure that puts on interest rates, you know this so well, and for that matter, for small business.
No, it's a major problem. We need more fiscal responsibility here in Washington. And I'm proud to say in Michigan, we've been a leader in our nation in doing that. I've done 7 balanced budgets. We do them 3 months ahead of time. They're fiscally and structurally sound, not just for that current year, but we look to the long term. Because every time you go into debt, every time you do those things, we're leaving some additional burden on our kids and their kids. And that's not right. So one of the things I think we need our political world to think much more about is you have a duty of representing your citizens well today, but don't we also have a duty to future generations? So in Michigan, we put in a plan to pay down our long-term debt. I can tell you, if you want a really cool job in Michigan, run for governor in 2038.
I'm not sure we're going to be around then,
those long-term liabilities. But isn't that important to be able to say to people?
Absolutely, absolutely, without a doubt. You're a Republican. The way you're talking is the way we used to hear a lot of Republicans talk. We used to hear about deficit hawks here in Washington. We don't find those deficit hawks too easily anymore. What's happening to your party? Is your party still a party that recognizes fiscal responsibility?
Well, I think we need to step up that dialogue more, and I think we do need to take more responsibility as a party. And I believe Michigan's a role model for doing that, and a number of governors. Again, we don't print money. We have to make our balanced budgets, but it's not just about that, but thinking about these long-term issues. So I hope that rises as an issue that we need to be much more responsible for, because we are putting way too much debt burden on future generations.
Another initiative that just came out this week is the infrastructure initiative from the White House. Every state is struggling with infrastructure. You've had your struggles, for that matter, with water. My hometown of Flint, Michigan, had a terrible problem with water. And we've had people on Bloomberg talking about nationwide the problem with the water system. It's not just bridges and tunnels, it's water. What can we, what should we be doing in this country, and how can we afford to pay for it?
We need to invest more. Actually, I called for a new water infrastructure fee in Michigan. We're talking about doing additional fees to help pay for recycling. And again, I don't do that lightly, David. I mean, it has to be something where you're showing a real return to our citizens. We shouldn't be taking money if we're not going to use it wisely. But in infrastructure, we need to invest more. And we did over $1 billion package just 2-3 years ago on our roads and bridges. We're starting to see the benefit of that. So let's do it in a smart way, though. One area that's being overlooked quite often that we're doing in Michigan, and we're leading the country, is integrated asset management. It's not just about spending money, but doing it smarter. Think how often the road in front of your home or where you work is torn up for water and sewer work, or for gas and electric, or for road work. We should be coordinating all those and tear that road up once and do multiple things. And we actually found a role model. We had to go to London to find a role model to do integrated asset management, but we've got a huge pilot we're doing in Michigan that I think is going to be a great model for the nation.
But it sounds like you are in favor, in the appropriate situation, to have user fees. I mean,
yes,
I've talked to several people, from Mark Short at the White House to Kevin McCarthy, Majority Leader, other people today, just today, Republicans saying they would never consider increasing the federal gas tax, which has been the same for 25 years now.
Right. Well, we increased it in Michigan because it was a smart thing to do. Because just as you said, what happens with inflation is you end up with a very low number, and how do you continue to invest? Your costs are going up. People respect that. I don't view it as an issue that, again, there's the political world that sort of says you can't do that. I think if you talk to our average citizens, as long as they believe they're getting a fair return, that they're seeing value for what they're investing in, that's an appropriate role for government.
So we all think of Detroit as an auto city, and as Michigan as an automobile-oriented state. You referred earlier to mobility, which often includes electric vehicles, autonomous vehicles, the change. That's a transformation for Michigan. Can Michigan take advantage of that? I mean, we have Silicon Valley, for example, who's moving into China, is moving very aggressively. How can Michigan compete in that major transformation of a big industry?
Well, we are. And I'm proud to say we're the world's leader in that field already. But it's about building partnerships. It shouldn't be a versus thing. What's going on is there's a major convergence between the auto industry and information technology, the Valley in many ways, and other places in the world. And it's the most exciting area of new technology in the world in many respects. We're showing that leadership because it's not about arguing or fighting with other parts of the world, but saying, how do we create partnerships to do it responsibly, to introduce this new technology in a smart way? And the constraint isn't necessarily just technology. It's going to be the insurance issues, the legal issues, many other questions. But I'm proud to say we're leading that dialogue in our country and around the world.
How are we going to have workers who are trained for it? I mean, this is a different world from when I was growing up. My father was at AC Sparkplug. You could come out of high school and get a really good job and basically have a career with a high school education, if that. That's no longer the case. We need our workers to be much better trained. Where does that come from? As we sit here at this small business conference, and one of the biggest issues small business owners say is they can't get the skilled labor.
That's a huge issue with every employer that you talk to. And I'm going to come out with a new program next week. I'm calling it the Marshall Plan for Talent. And it's really taking a new focus. In many respects, if you look at these high demand fields, they don't even require a bachelor's degree. It's going to be about competency-based certificates. Many companies already issue these certificates for information technology, but we need to build these certificate programs out that are all showing people are competent, where they can walk on a job. And there are great well-paying jobs that after 1 year or 2 years in these kind of programs, you can get a $60,000 or $70,000 a year job. Isn't that a great solution? And so Michigan, we're already leading in many of these fields, particularly the professional trades, but we're going to ramp this up and show some leadership in our nation on this topic.
So finally, we're coming into the home stretch for Governor Snyder of Michigan. What comes after Governor Snyder of Michigan? Who's going to succeed you? Is there someone who has your sort of vision who can move this forward even farther?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I have the best lieutenant governor in the country. He's got that vision, so I know there's one wonderful person that could carry that ball and run with it. But again, we have to wait and see. We've got the election process, but I'm really proud to continue on making Michigan a top 10 state in the nation. We're already there, and I encourage everyone to come do small business in Michigan.